The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that it will not be attending the Group of 20 talks this month in South Africa. Rubio said that he was skipping the event because the host government had an anti-American agenda. Rubio's announcement comes 2 days after President Donald Trump lashed out at South Africa over recent land reforms. In a post on X, Rubio said that he would boycott the G20 talks of foreign ministers in Johannesburg on February 20th and 21st. Rubio wrote, and I'm quoting from that, "South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property." He also added that South Africa was using G20 to promote solidarity, equality and sustainability, in other words, DEI and climate change. Now, DEI, or diversity, equity and inclusion, has been attacked relentlessly by the Trump administration. Earlier, President Donald Trump had asserted that South Africa was confiscating land, accusing Pretoria of treating certain classes of people very badly. Trump had also threatened to cut funding to the country.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa rejected Trump's assertions and said that he was ready to explain his government's land reform policy to his U.S. counterpart. Now, the act stipulates the government may, in certain circumstances, offer quote-unquote nil compensation for property it decides to seize in the public interest. However, it does not allow for arbitrary seizures and states that attempts must be made to reach an agreement on compensation with the owner. Now, on Tuesday, Ramaphosa spoke with top Trump ally Elon Musk to raise concerns about disinformation being spread by the U.S. president. Land ownership is a contentious issue in South Africa, with most farmland still owned by white people 3 decades after the end of the apartheid. The government is under pressure to implement reforms. The absence of the United States, the world's largest economy, would mark a major blow to the G20, which is meant to represent the world's largest economies. The meeting could have also offered a first opportunity for Rubio to meet his Russian counterpart, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov.
Higher benefit. We want to discourage that by the Chinese believing that, yes, could they ultimately win an invasion of Taiwan, but the price would be too high to pay.
And to give us more analysis on this, joining us live on the broadcast is Edwin Naidu. He's a political commentator and he's joining us live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Welcome to the show. Good to have you with us. Now, Edwin, what do you really have to say about Trump's claim that South African government is confiscating land from certain classes?
Good afternoon or good morning. Well, Trump's claim is actually absurd because it's not true. There's been this policy that was enacted to take land but to pay for it. I think it's all part of what the ANC has been talking about for the last 30 years. It hasn't come into fruition as yet. I think there's just unnecessary panic being created about the bill that was became law right now. But it's not as alarmist as Trump has been making it. It's something that's been in the pipeline. We've been talking about it, but I think it's a very divisive issue in South Africa, and understandably because you've got 80% of the land that's owned by the minority white population. I think Black South Africans have been unhappy and been talking about this coming to fruition so that land is equitable and access to it is much easier than it is. And the fact that this has become law seems to speed up the fears. But I must say that it's very alarmist, especially with Trump and Elon Musk, for that matter, saying that people are having their land taken without compensation. It's not happened. With the constitution that South Africa has, with the laws that we have, you can't just take something and not compensate. So it's actually wrong. I don't know it. Trump never substantiated where he got his information from. it's wrong, it's alarmist, and I think he needs to focus on America, not South Africa. And there's two issues here. One is the land. The second is the funding issue, and maybe that's something that separate to this, but they seem to be linked in any case.
Taking off from that, and for the sake of clarity of our viewers, can you explain what the land reforms aimed at redressing inequalities perpetrated during the apartheid era undertaken by Cyril Ramaphosa government are? Can you just explain it to us?
Well, 80 to 90% of land is owned by white South Africans, and the aim is to ensure that access to land is available to everybody. When you're talking about restitution, and this has been happening over the last 20 years, but in very limited forms, where people have been compensated for land that was taken away from their families during apartheid. The aim now is to ensure that it's taken to a different, speed it up a bit more. People have equitable access to land. People can own land as well. And I think, in order for that to happen, this legislation is to compensate, is to make sure that no one's going to have their property taken away and said, we want this. In fact, this is a scare tactic that began in 1994 during the elections, when you had stories going around saying that when the ANC comes into power, your house is going to go and people will give you a 5 Rand coin. That did not happen. It was a scare story, as what you're seeing now. So the law is to do it in a way that's, measured and, ensuring that there's no free for all. And I think what Trump suggests is that people are having their homes taken, people are having their land taken, but there's not one instance of that having taken place yet. The law is to ensure that land is made available, and if your land is taken, there's a process, and it's a long process. I don't think the law makes it to happen speedily. You've got it's an application, and there is a land commissioner that will decide.
Fair point. I got your point. Why is Trump doing this? Why is the Trump administration accusing Ramaphosa government of anti-American agenda?
Well, South Africa is a key ally within BRICS, and I think you've seen that BRICS influence is growing. A number of new countries are joining. South Africa does not support American stance on Israel, and we know where Trump stands on Israel. South Africa took Israel to the Hague, and got a judgment against what's happening, in terms of the genocide there. And I think South Africa is seen as a key ally of China as well. So definitely Trump is threatened. South Africa is hosting the presidency of the G20 for this whole year. We know that's a powerful grouping of foreign ministers, and you come together to decide on what's happening around the world. I think Trump is, I wouldn't say is afraid, but I think there's a sense of South Africa is pushing above its weight and getting too close to people that America does not want it to be close to. I think it's influence.
Okay, got your point there. Edwin Naidu, thank you so much for your analysis on joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.